Hello, it is me, Floss, from the Grape Jelly Library, where we love to talk about books and where we are so glad you could join us because we always look forward to your visit. Here at the Grape Jelly Library, we love to talk about books, but I don't know how much we're going to love talking about today's book. Table topics. I'm a little nervous here. What is the secret to staying young? Two things come to mind. Laughter. Make sure you are getting your daily dose of laughter in. I should say doses of laughter. And water. Make sure you're drinking your water. If you have laughter and water, that's a great combination for keeping yourself young. Comment below. Let me know, what do you think is the secret to staying young? All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about this son of a gun right here. I'm telling you, the way that this book opens up is grisly, gruesome, and if you're anything like me, true crime fans, it will suck you right in. But if you are a little weak in the knees, then I would say avoid this book, at least the beginning part of it. The rest of the book is pretty cool. So this is a book, and it was written by Carl Hoffman. And Carl Hoffman wrote this book as a result of what was learned at some point along the line. Okay, I'm going to start at the beginning so you can follow along with me, and I will give no revelations of spoilers. At least not if I can help it. Now, for those of you who don't know who Michael Rockefeller is, I'm about to tell you. John D. Rockefeller is Michael's great grandfather. John D. Rockefeller is the great oil tycoon, richest man in the world at that time. Michael's father, Nelson, opened up an art museum in New York City where he placed Michael on the board of directors. Michael was very interested in the New Guinea Asmat tribal art, which wasn't typically considered art by the tribe. They were tools, these carvings out of wood and such. But Michael had like almost an obsessive interest in it. So Michael wanted to do something that had never been done before, and at a very young age, he set out to New Guinea with his friend to try and get some of these unique pieces of artwork. Well, while he was over there, he spent approximately $7,000. Now, we're talking about a tribe that is poorer than poor. They are extremely poor. So Michael had to be careful not to flaunt his money, in which he had an endless supply of, and not to offend. So Michael became acquainted with several tribes on the land, and he photographed them, and he seemed to have gotten along with them well. About 6 months into the trip, he was summoned home. His father had made a proclamation that he was going to be divorcing Michael's mother and marrying, the young secretary, the one who does the paperwork, we'll say. Yeah, we know how people. Anyways, so Michael got on a plane and he flew home. Michael didn't stay home very long. His heart was in New Guinea. And so, not long after arriving back home, he set his sights back on New Guinea, and this time no longer a newbie. He knew the layout of the land somewhat better, and he knew the people better. As a matter of fact, the people of the land knew him now as Mike and treated him, I would say, somewhat respectfully. Now, Michael encountered a man who had a boat, and Michael did everything he possibly could to obtain this boat from this gentleman. And it's not like this gentleman didn't want to sell his boat, but he was still using it. So he said to Michael, I will sell you the boat, but just let me finish what I'm doing with it first. Okay, then comes the day where he did sell the boat to Michael, and Michael was able to get around the long land faster, easier, better. So Michael is on the waters with his friend and two tour guides, Simon and Leo. And on that day, the waters were very, very choppy, and these huge waves were washing into this boat, which wasn't really that big. It was kind of like a smaller pontoon boat on jet skis. And it all these waves and all the waves that were crashing into the boat flooded the engine, and no matter how Michael tried, he could not get the engine started. So they decided that they were just going to wait it out. Well, this huge wave came and it kind of turned the boat over, and it inverted the boat. And Michael's two tour guides, being very aquatic from like birth and very, very um, well aware of the land, decided that they were going to swim to shore, which was approximately 14 miles out. And they would get help, and they would bring help to Michael and his friend Renee. Okay, so several hours had passed, and Michael was growing restless, and Michael decided that he was going to swim to shore himself. And Renee, his friend, was against this idea because the number one rule is you do not abandon your boat. But Michael was determined, and he knew that he could swim the distance. He had it all planned out. 14 miles should take him about 20 hours. So within that swim, damage is going to incur with the human body. The salt water is not going to be very kind to you after so many hours. So Michael was fatigued, he was sore, and he was in pain. And he did reach a part that he could actually feel there was some sort of ground beneath his feet. He wouldn't be able to stand in it because it was like wet and mushy, but he was taking self assurance in knowing that he was getting closer because now there's some sort of land beneath his feet. He decided that he was going to release some of his flotation devices to, lighten the load, and he was going to take it a somewhat easier and float on his back. Well, here's where the story gets interesting. There were several canoes of Asmati tribesmen on the water that day, and they were en route to fight another tribe. One of them noticed this saltwater crocodile floating inward when, like, I'm going to call him the grand poobah of the tribesmen. I probably shouldn't do that. That's probably very disrespectful. But the head tribesman, he recognized that that was no crocodile. It was, in fact, a human being. And this human being happened to be Michael. Michael noticed all these canoes on the water, and he raised his hand and he yelled for help. Help, over here, over here. And they paddled over to him, and they actually looked at him and smiled, and then they looked at their leader as an indication of what should we do here, and they looked back at Michael and then back at the leader, and the leader nodded his head. So they scooped Michael up from underneath the armpits and they brought him in the canoe. That that is where my story ends. I will tell no more. The reason this book was written was because not a lot is known about Michael Rockefeller. Not There's not a lot of gossip around town about him or his life. Now, Michael did perish at the age, or I should say, perish at the age of 23. And I Googled Michael to see what he looked like. And my goodness, he is a beautiful young man, beautiful young man who met his demise way too soon. Um, how he met his demise is unspeakable. It's unspeakable. So I had this book hanging out in my Audible for quite some time. And in participation of the Read What You Own challenge, I can only say I am mad at myself for not reading this book sooner. This book is thrilling. This book starts out very graphically. Um, yes, it is true. Michael met his maker in a very horrific way. For years, it was believed that Michael was eaten by a shark or Michael drowned, and his family chose to believe that he drowned. And they even paid $250,000 to get the answer. Um, well, there was a journalist that went over there to do some investigating, and he was recording some footage, and he wasn't happy with the footage that he got, so he kind of just tossed that film in the closet and never thought twice about it. And then some like 40, 50 years later, he decided to pull the footage out and review it, and there is a image of what looks to be an American white male amongst the tribesmen of New Guinea. And we don't know for sure if that is Michael. But I think this book was beautifully written, with the exception of the shocking beginning to this book. Well, you think the whole book is going to be, you know, on that track. It quickly gets off of that track, and then it takes us on a more milder, calmer journey, and it's some would say maybe boring. I love to learn new things, so I did not find it boring. I found it quite interesting to explore the culture of this tribe and how things have changed since then. Back then, cannibalism was not illegal in 1961. Headhunters were not unheard of in 1961. Through the years, things have changed for the tribesmen. Um, and I was wondering how this book was going to end, and I kind of wanted it to end the way that it began. Started off to be a little disappointed in the ending, but as the ending started to play out, I don't think it could have ended any better. I hope I've intrigued you enough to want to pick this book up and find out for yourself what happened to Michael. Do all the research. This is definitely a book that you will go down a rabbit hole with. I have Googled his face at least 20 times, and each time I am just in awe of his beauty and his determination, and just, there's no, oh, he was rich. No. That does not sit well with me. A person is a person, a human is a human, regardless of what they have or what they don't have. And my goodness, Michael, I admire him so much. That's all I'm going to say about this book. I do hope you will pick this one up, especially if you are into learning new things, and if you were one of those students that you didn't mind a history lesson, this is the book for you. Until my next video, know that I love you. Be well, be good, be reading, and may all your dreams come